Hello and welcome to Almost 30 Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's Lindsay and Krista, your BFFs in all things change and spirituality and health and wellness and fashion, actually.
Yes, fashion.
Zoom in on YouTube.
Of fashion. You guys have seen this sweater if you're in on YouTube. I've been in a moment I've had to dress up a lot for the past week, and it's
we are done.
My patience is wearing thin.
It's so funny
Troll season is coming.
Yeah, it's so funny how that happens when you have whether it's makeup, like wearing makeup 5 days in a row, and you're like, I am
Done.
Getting dressed up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I'm not in a season of my life. I feel like you more so are, because you're being seen in places and spaces that like you need to look fly. But I'm like, when I get stressed, like when we have a recording week, I'm like, I don't want to have to like fully upend my wardrobe. I'm trying to be creative, but I'm like, oh, it's bleak in here, everybody.
Yeah, honestly. Mine's all like costumes.
Yeah.
Mine's like all like just like rhinestones and like the stuff I was wearing recently. I'm like, this is so I'm like rhinestone Barbie. Just
It's
like
fun though.
It's actually really fun. It's really fun, but sometimes I'll wear outfits and be like, this is such a dope, perfect outfit. And in 2 years, I'll be ashamed of it. In 2 years, I'll be cringing.
But that's life.
Yeah, that's like, if you're not cringing, you're not trying. is what I say.
Go big or go home.
Yeah, go big or go home. Today's conversation is with Aaron Abke, a dear friend of the show. I've known Aaron for a long time. We did a Law of One program together, I think in 2020, maybe 2020. Law of One is one of my favorite spiritual texts. There's 5, books in the sort of channeling. And we did a course on it together, which was really, really powerful. I love working with him. I love him as a teacher. He is so researched and so true and so in integrity and such an amazing, amazing person. And so on this episode, we're actually talking about his first book, which is really exciting. I've known that he should write a book for a while. This book is called The 3 Beliefs of the Ego, A Sufferer's Guide to Freedom. And I think this book is really important for our audience because so much of our suffering in life, our pain, everything that sort of irks us, brings us off the path, keeps us away from our calling, keeps us away from deep intimacy in relationships and God, is really the attachment that the ego has to things. And, I'm not saying that I'm like, hey guys, let's get this clear and straight and be free. But it actually was a really helpful conversation because when you can really just look at things as the 3 beliefs, you can sort of catch yourself in them and notice them. And then be able to, move past them to feel more free. And so these beliefs are lack, attachment, and control. So the belief that there is a feeling of incompleteness or unworthiness. There is the attachment to things. So the belief that your happiness depends on external circumstances or outcomes. So I'm only happy when. So if these outcomes are really not met, you get angry or frustrated. And then the last is control. So this is the belief that we can manipulate life and do, everything that we can to get our desired outcome. And it's also the fear of losing control or the inability to control. I feel like in my life, I notice a lot with when I'm working with clients, it's kind of like my permission to be in that space. I really notice a lot of the attachment to things where it's like the attachment to the outcome, the attachment to the thing. It was interesting because I was also in an experience a while back with a client where it was related to a relationship and they were very attached to timelines, to dates, to certain things said in conversations. Like it was almost like the mind and the ego were very attaching to specifics rather than like, and holding on to those like numbers, holding on to like the date. And he said this, and this is when this, and it was like this whole like attachment to these specific aspects of this relationship, like a gripping of them. And I was like, wow, that's really fascinating because we all kind of have done that in certain ways where we're like, they said this and then this happened and you just kind of keep that. But attachment, I think, is a big one. And then also control. I mean, for so many of us, it's really the bane, especially for women.
Yeah, for sure. Well, because I think there's like a comfort in control where like you feel like it's almost, or you convince yourself it's in service to control certain things, for the good of all.
So real.
But it's so much, I think for me, a lot of my the ways I want to control is definitely out of fear, but then also like just regulating my own nervous system.
That's a good
And
one.
so it's like checking in, like, how can I actually do that in practice, regulate my nervous system, rather than try to control certain things around me.
That's a really good one.
Yeah, control's a big, 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 big one. Because, and I think control, if someone were to say to you, you know, it sounds like you're trying to control this, or it sounds like this is like your controlling part, like that's very confronting. Like control has kind of has an energy to it, has a scarlet letter to it that I'm like, I'm not trying to control.
Well, I think when you've had parents that are controlling, you perceive them as controlling. You're like, no, I'm not controlling. You know, like I'm not that. Because it would be like my, you know, a parent of mine was controlling. And so I'm like, I'm not me. That's one thing I'm not. One thing I'm not is controlling. That's not me, you know? And then you're like, because you don't want to be that, but then you are. And I've even seen this with clients or friends where you know, we're all controlling in some ways, you know, of things.
Of course. Because I think the human part of us, because there's so much that I think wants to be unknown.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of like on this quest.
Yeah.
To figure it all out.
Yeah.
And not everything is supposed to be figured out.
In the conversation, one of my favorite parts was we talked about Beauty and the Beast and Beauty and the Beast as like this really beautiful spiritual journey and example of awakening, and all the elements of Beauty and the Beast as like a spiritual, you know, a spiritual book and a spiritual movie. And so you guys will hear that breakdown as well. I love looking at that type of lore and that type of teaching to, you know, use it as examples for that type of work.
I can like hear this Beauty and the Beast music right now. No, not that one. The
and
scary
it's like
one.
each of I don't know if this was him, but like it was like the plates and like the objects represent like old patterns in the subconscious. Like it is like, yeah, because it's like in the castle. It's like the castle's like your mind. Like,
oh wow.
I don't know if that was him. I think that might have been him. But there are so many different layers and ways you can approach some of those old Disney classics from like a psychological or Jungian or you know, like analytical, you know, even like Joseph Campbell hero's journey perspective. Like Jordan Peterson does like a really beautiful job of breaking down like Pinocchio, Lion King, like all of those in a way that's so fascinating that you just do not see or understand.
Yeah, totally. And our children are watching these. Hopefully
I
it's
know,
good.
honestly. I mean, you know what's, oh my gosh, this is so funny. I had to send in pictures to this event that I spoke at, and it was pictures of me as a little girl. So I sent them in, and one of the pictures that I had was me and me at Disney World, and it was me and Jessica Rabbit. And I'm honestly 6 years old, and I'm hugging Jessica Rabbit and her giant curves. I'll just say curves. Her giant curvy body.
She was Kim Kardashian before Kim Kardashian
Girl,
was
and
Kim
I'm
Kardashian.
like, why would you need a character that was like her for children?
It's crazy.
A very
to get
sensual.
The dads in the room.
No, for real. A very sensual, very, very sexual, very, very bodacious woman. And I'm a child, and I'm like, I honestly was looking at me. I had my little like funfetti glasses on. They were like this. They were like Coke bottle thick. And I'm like hugging her ass.
Oh my God.
It was so crazy. Anywho's or whatzels. So this is going to be a really beautiful conversation. It's really practical. We talk about some of the teachings of Jesus as well. We talk about some of the teachings in the Bible. He's just such an expert in that too. And I think this is going to help you in a very practical way to think about your life, to think about your suffering, and to think about how we sort of approach everything, because the ego is really that like the film, you know, between us and the world. So it's a really interesting perspective, and I think you guys are going to love it. So the book is out now by Aaron Abke, our dear Aaron Abke, and it's called The 3 Beliefs of Ego, A Sufferer's Guide to Freedom. So you can get it out now wherever books are sold, and you can also listen to other episodes we've done with Aaron. You can search Aaron Abke Almost 30, or you can listen to his YouTube channel for some of his teachings as well. So it's Aaron Abke on YouTube.
Thank you all for listening. Enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the other side.
Okay, this one's wild. We've all heard of omega-3s, right? Well, get ready because there's a new essential fatty acid on the block and it's kind of a big deal. It's called C15 and it's the first essential fatty acid to be discovered in over 90 years. Fatty 15 is the first and only supplement made with pure vegan C15, and according to new research, it may be the missing piece in our long-term health. So here's what blew my mind. A brand new study identified a condition called cellular fragility syndrome. It's the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years, and it's caused by low levels of C15. Right now, as many as 1 in 3 people worldwide may be deficient, which can lead to accelerated aging, poor sleep, fatigue, and issues with metabolism, liver, and heart health. Whew. So, C15 works on a cellular level to strengthen and repair your cells, boost mitochondrial energy output, activate your body's natural repair and sleep pathways, and protect against oxidative stress. I've been taking Fatty 15 daily. It's just one tiny capsule. It's so easy. And I truly, truly feel more clear, more rested, and feel like I'm not fighting against my body. It's also vegan, made from a patented plant-based C15 powder, 100% pure. There's no fillers, no flavors, no fishy burps like omega-3s. I hate those. It even comes in a chic reusable glass and bamboo jar with sustainable refills. We really love a well-designed packaging, good for the environment. Fatty 15 is on a mission to replenish your C15 levels and restore your long-term health. You can get 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/almost30 and using code almost30 at checkout. That's fatty15.com/almost30 and use the code almost30 to save 15%. If you're like me and want to be intentional about what you're putting in your body, not just on it, you need to know about Symbiotica. I've been using their products for a while now. I would say about 4 years almost. And honestly, they just get it. And my body loves their products. Symbiotica combines cutting edge science with bioavailable ingredients to help your body actually use what you're giving it. So, a few of my favorites lately, I love their vitamin C all year round. This is not your average C. This one is liposomal, so it actually absorbs, and it's packed with antioxidants that help boost immunity, fight inflammation, and support collagen production. It's especially clutch during seasonal changes or travel. I make sure to really bring this with me everywhere I go, especially like during the fall season or if we're traveling, anything like that. I am really, really loving their magnesium L-threonate. This is a game changer for sleep, relaxation, and recovery. It's one of the only forms that crosses the blood-brain barrier, so it really helps with calming the mind, not just relaxing the muscles. Why I love Symbiotica, I mean, they're super transparent, no fillers, no weird additives, and every product is formulated with your body's actual biology in mind. One of their new products that I love so much is their colostrum. It is so tasty. It's like a vanilla sea salt, and this liposomal form is super bioavailable. It's incredible for skin, hair, nails, and immunity for sure, as well as digestion. Try it out. Go to symbiotica.com and use the code almost30 at checkout for 15% off site wide or 20% off your first subscription order. I recommend a subscription because you don't have to think about it. It just comes to your door every single month and you won't miss a day of your supplements. That's symbiotica.com, Cymbiotika.com, and the code is almost 30.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm so proud of you. Like, I was just digging into the book last night and this morning, and you are just such an amazing teacher and you're such an amazing leader. And you're just one of the people I always think of when I think about someone that's embodied and in integrity and in truth. And I'm so lucky to have known you for a while and just to see you just evolve in your content and just always find ways to support the collective in a way that we need has just been so beautiful. And
Thank you.
I was just so excited to read the book about your new book, 3 Beliefs of the Ego, because I felt like it was something that is a topic that's been in the sphere, in the space, but we don't understand in the way that you teach it. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about what inspired you to write this book, because there's so many books you could write. Like, I know you have so many books on your heart, but why this book?
This was the no-brainer first book to write because this book is kind of the summation of, or the field guide that I learned from my own experience of just crawling out of the dark night of the soul, you know? But I don't think we've actually, in any of our podcasts, I don't know if we've talked about this before. But when I was, so grew up religious, all that, got divorced when I left religion, moved in with my parents, moved back to the Bay Area. And so all of a sudden my whole life is upended. I'm no longer religious, which in and of itself is like insanely disorienting, right? Anytime you leave a cult, it's tough. But like when everybody you know is a Christian, your parents, your family, I literally didn't know anybody that wasn't a Christian. So I have my entire life erased, start from scratch. Divorce is tough. Like so many tough things came to a head. And so in my mid 20s, I went through about a 4-year period of just like super intense, inescapable depression. And I didn't know who I was anymore. Like, who's Aaron Abke without being a Christian? I have no idea who I am, what I want to do with my life. And so I was just personal training, and I had no vision, no purpose. And that also added to, the depression. So all of that was pushing me to like tremendous spiritual seeking. And what happened was one day I worked at Google for 4 years as a personal trainer, which you know, and I had this routine I developed where I would go up to the balcony above my gym and I would listen to Eckhart Tolle on my lunch break for like an hour. And it was the one time of the day that I finally had a little bit of peace of mind. The rest of the day, my mind is tormenting me and all this stuff, and I can't get away from it. But I would put my headphones in, eat lunch, watch the clouds pass, and listen to Eckhart or somebody like that. And it was probably like 2 or 3 months into doing that. And just, the planets aligned one day for whatever reason. And I'm listening to Eckhart, and he's making fun of things that the ego says to us. And, Eckhart's famous thing is like, ego is the voice in the head or voice in your head. And he's repeating phrases the ego says, like, if only people would realize how special I am, then I would truly be happy, and things like that. And the audience,
my ego's favorite conversation.
Yes, yeah.
Really.
Talk about me, how special I am. And the audience is laughing, and then Eckhart would laugh. And so I'm laughing with Eckhart as he repeats these phrases one by one. And I'm recognizing, wow, this is just dead accurate. That's exactly what my ego is essentially saying to me without saying it. And you know how laughter can sometimes be like a really powerful way to realize truth? You can sort of laugh yourself into a realization sometimes. I had one of those moments where I saw the silliness of it all, that there's this voice in my head, almost like a tape recorder, just playing on a loop. And I'm just identifying with every word out of its mouth. And it's like, how silly would it be if there was a tape recorder on in the room just looping, and I'm just, oh, that's me talking, and I'm crying about it. Like, I'm insane. Like, this is all crazy. I'm not the voice in my head. And all of a sudden, it just broke free. And the way I describe it, the best I can describe it is that like some kind of metaphysical curtain was pulled back, And I was just like sort of permitted into this other realm of pure oneness. And all of a sudden I'm on this balcony, and there's like software engineers, eating lunch on a Tuesday, like 30 feet to my left. And I'm going into this fit of like laughter and crying, like hysterical laughter, hysterical crying, because I'm crying at the beauty of it all. And then the cosmic joke hits and I'm laughing at it all. It's like it's like devastatingly perfect. And they probably thought I was just on like all kinds of drugs, right?
They're like, at least he doesn't want to kill himself now.
Yeah, at least he's going to die happy.
Yeah.
So I had this recognition come into my mind of, oh, you have a client downstairs soon. And so I've kind of float downstairs and into my gym. And for 2 weeks, I'm in this state, unbroken, absolute like Buddha consciousness, Christ consciousness. And then I woke up 2 weeks to the day, and I looked at my phone when my alarm went off, and my brain registered, oh, wow, that was 2 weeks ago that I had that amazing encounter on the balcony, and I've been in this state ever since. And I literally couldn't remember what suffering was like. That's how blissful it was. It was like an old dream. You can kind of barely recall it, And so I had this thought, well, gosh, 2 whole weeks in this state, like maybe this is a permanent state. And this idea of like, maybe I got enlightened, like Eckhart or something. Like, what else could I think at this point? And that was the entryway for the ego to come back in, and the downward spiral began. And as I describe in the book, it was like being cast out of heaven, like Lucifer or something. Like I was given this free sample of enlightenment. I was given a free tour of heaven, and then I was found unworthy, and booted out. And when you live in hell for a while, it's obviously really awful, and nobody likes living in hell. But when you've been to heaven and then you get kicked back into hell again, it's a lot worse. But that was the gift, I think, is that it was so, losing that heavenly state of consciousness was so unbearable that it just, I walked out of my former life. I quit bodybuilding, I quit fitness modeling, And I just thought the only thing that matters, I'll go be homeless on the street if I have to, but the only thing that matters is how do I get back to that state of consciousness again? I cannot live in this life in this state anymore. And so that's what I call like the two ingredients, I think, for liberation is, number one, I finally believed that freedom from suffering really is possible and available for the human. And I really didn't believe that before. It was like, maybe some degree of freedom is possible, but for the most part, human life sucks and you're going to suffer. So that was gone. It was like, oh, now I know for sure that you can have real inner freedom and happiness. And then two, the second ingredient was just this burning passion to do whatever it takes to get back to that state. And so that's what began my discovery of the three beliefs, because all I had was this kind of working definition from Eckhart Tolle that the ego is the voice in your head. And I'm like, yeah, it definitely is. But I couldn't get past that. I didn't know where else to go after that. And so I started asking myself, okay, if the ego is the cause of all my suffering, then let's just break down, like, what do I really suffer from? What are the feelings I suffer from? And I came down to there's just these three negative emotions: sadness, anger, and fear. And there's many variations of them, but these are like the root negative emotions that cause all suffering. And so once I saw that, the question was, all right, well then why do I feel sad when certain things happen and not afraid or anger? Like, why do I have different emotional reactions to situations? There has to be like a belief underlying the emotion. And so slowly this understanding came through. And when I started asking the question, what is the belief that causes sadness? What is the underlying belief behind anger and behind fear? I think when you ask good questions, the universe likes to give you good answers. And that's when the understanding started to come through. And I saw, oh, wow, my ego is actually just really a combination of these three beliefs. And these three beliefs are the cause of every problem I've ever experienced in my life. And when I saw that about myself, I knew, okay, that must be true for the whole human race itself. And so that's when I got serious about, okay, I need to like really understand where these beliefs come from. How do we transcend them? Can we transcend them? And that's where the journey began of discovering the teachings that are in this book.
And so for someone listening, if you were to say to them, these three beliefs are causing the pain of your reality.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, well, I lost my job or all these things. Like, how could you break that down for them to understand if they're in a position right now where they're not seeing how that could be creating their reality?
Well, the first thing I would say is like the framework in this book might not be for everybody, because I'm just like a philosopher at heart.
Yeah,
and so I look to the philosophy of everything.
Yeah.
And I think for me, freedom has always really come from understanding the philosophy that underlies something.
Yeah.
And so the three beliefs are more of like a philosophy of this is the way the ego perceives and thinks and behaves. And so somebody who's not philosophically oriented might need like a different teaching.
Yeah.
But this framework to me is extremely simple. I've been teaching it to my students for like the last 5 years. And not only did it rescue me from my suffering in my dark night, but I've watched it do so for hundreds and thousands of our students. So I think, the simplest way to understand the teachings in this book is all kind of wrapped around the idea of the emotional guidance system, that fundamentally we as humans totally misunderstand what our emotions are. And so I spend a lot of time in the book clearing that up. I think there's two big misunderstandings I try to clear up in the book. What is the ego? Number one, and what are emotions? Number two.
I was just going to ask, there's so much misunderstanding about the ego, kill your ego. Your ego is your personality. Your ego is all these things. Can you break down what the ego actually is?
Yeah, there's so many levels we could look at it from, but I think as a working definition, I really have understood the ego to be the mental activity of identifying with form. And so that's a big change in understanding, I think, for a lot of people, that the ego is not a noun, but a verb, right? It's not an entity, but an activity. So that's why you can't kill it or get rid of it, because it's like, how do you get rid of an activity? Like, don't do it. You don't really get rid of it. You just engage or you don't engage with it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So that, I think, already is a very helpful definition. And I actually give 3 different sort of working definitions, because I don't think you can completely summarize the ego in one succinct definition, because it's so enigmatic and nuanced and complex. But the three definitions I gave are the mental activity of identifying. The second one is the ego is our mind's resistance against reality, or the mind's war
Yes.
against reality. And that's also an activity, right? To resist life.
Yes.
And then the third definition is more complex and philosophical, but it's the belief in personal doership, or the belief in being in control, that I really am a separate character that thinks and acts and decides all by myself. That is the third kind of working definition for the ego.
That's such an interesting one, because I actually think about that quite a bit of, in surrender to God or surrender to the will. And then also, what am I manifesting or creating? So I guess, how do you think about that frame? If we think about us controlling our reality or controlling our lives, is that the ego's perception that we're in control of things? Or is that, because I think there's a lot of women in our community that do believe or have been taught that we are the creator of our reality and that we can create and manifest anything. Would that mean that we're not? Or tell me more about that.
Yeah, I think the key question there is like, from what position are you creating? Because you can create from the ego position, meaning that everything you create is about satisfying this sense of separateness you have.
Yeah.
Or you're trying to satisfy a self that doesn't really exist. So like Aaron, the character Aaron Abke, and what Aaron's dreams and aspirations are. I want to be married by this age and have this many children and have this kind of job. And so I have all my desires, right? And I really think they're going to fulfill me. And so I might even come to law of attraction teachings and go to a Abraham Hicks event or something and be like, I'm going to create that reality.
Yeah.
But it's going to keep letting me down. It's going to keep failing to satisfy me. And so that's when we have to start going beyond the ego position. And I talk about this in the chapter that deals with the third belief of control. But I think the ultimate philosophy to requalify that with is, I'm not in control of my life. I'm in cooperation with life. So I always create with life. I'm never creating in a vacuum or in isolation. And I think a lot of people, myself included, unknowingly go about their manifestations like with that underlying assumption of like, I'm creating my reality. It's like, no, all of life is creating it for you at every moment. And so you should try to develop the friendliest, most loving relationship with life that you possibly can, because life knows a lot better than you do what you actually want and what will actually satisfy you. And that's the whole paradox to me, Krista, is like living in this human experience where I'm so incredibly limited. I only have this tiny little reference frame of this person, Aaron. And I think from that perspective, I know what I want. I can't possibly know what I want. Like, I've been chasing what I want my whole life, and it led me into my dark night of the soul, you know? So at some point you give up, like, I'm going to create my reality and be happy. And you say, no, I'm going to surrender to God and allow God to create it for me. And I'll just be in cooperation with that will. That's a very A Course in Miracles kind of approach. But to me, it's the only winning attitude there is.
So how do we do that in practicality? Because I'm even in that experience in my life right now where I'm like, okay, like right now I'm at a point in my life where there's a different phase in my career, a different phase in my personal life. And so it's like, how am I taking action? How am I setting myself up for the life that I want, but then also leaving room for God? Like, I feel like it's so interesting for me because if I were this is my belief. If I were surrendering it all to God, I wouldn't be making any plans. And so I'm kind of in that. And I think a lot of people in our community are becoming more privy to God, just moving through them and working with them a lot by our support of God's PR team. But it's like, how do we work that balance? Or how do you live with that balance?
Yeah, super pertinent question. And although I could go into like a law of attraction vein with this, I'll stick to kind of how the book addresses that question, which is one of the core philosophies of the book, is this idea of relationship, right? That everything exists in relationship, literally everything. Like the chair you're sitting on, you're in relationship to it. The air you're breathing, the sound of my voice, your own thoughts. You cannot escape this fact of everything exists in relationship. And so you might as well get used to the idea and start understanding, what is a real relationship then? What is a loving relationship? Because the definition of enlightenment that I give in the book is that enlightenment, to me, now at least, is just the ability to be in loving relationship with everything at all times. Obviously easier said than done, but like it's a practice that has to be trained and gradually mastered. So what is relationship? Well, A Course in Miracles has this amazing kind of philosophy of giving and receiving. And it really helps me to understand that like that's what a real relationship is. It's a mutual exchange of giving and receiving. And so in whatever exchange you're in, the idea is, how can I be both in a giving and receiving state with this relationship? So in terms of like being in a loving relationship with life, right? What does that look like? Well, the state of giving, first of all, just means giving your best. It means I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. I'm not just here for myself and to satisfy all my own selfish wants. I'm here to give. I'm here to bless. I'm here to serve. I'm here to radiate and be who I am and give value to the world. So whoever the person is right in front of me, part of my inner disposition should always be, how can I help this person? And it might be as simple as just listening to them or something, but it also might mean giving them money or whatever. You've got to be in that state yourself of what does it look like to give to this person? What do they need right now? But then I also have to be in the state of receiving. So giving and receiving are not actions per se, but states of being. You have to practice. So what does it mean to receive life? Clearly it means to accept what happens to me, right? Whatever life brings to me, I have to know it's for my highest good in some way. It's leading me closer to a happy outcome that my soul really wants. So I can never resist life, because the moment I resist life and say, no, life, I don't want this to happen, then I cut myself off from true relationship. And so in terms of like manifestation, the universe contains all abundance. There is no lack, as I go into great detail about. But there can be a willful lack of relationship with life and with abundance, right? Just because everything's available to us doesn't mean the universe is going to force us to experience everything. Like, you've been given free will. So each one of us has to choose, what do I want to be in relationship to? We have to find our own path. But whatever it is I want to be in relationship with, whatever form of abundance I want to experience, if I'm not in a state of giving and receiving, I will continually cut myself off from that flow, because the universe thrives on giving and receiving. It's a state of perfect balance, and the universe can't be imbalanced, right? Any degree to which you or I try to imbalance the universe by resisting it or judging it or anything of the sort, that violation has to come back upon us, right? We pay the toll, not the universe, because the universe can't be imbalanced. So that's the famous teaching of Jesus in Luke 6:37. Judge and you will be judged. Condemn and you will be condemned. Forgive and you will be forgiven. For the measure you give will be the measure you get back. That's universal law. So like, we have to know that as we go about creating our reality and say, okay, I'm allowed to create whatever I want, but I can't do it outside of the state of giving and receiving. So what that looks like practically, I think, is each and every day, I'm here to give to life. So this idea of like surrender to God by no means means like you sit on your couch and stare at the wall and drool or something. It means I'm going to do the next right thing. I'm going to give the best I can give right now and just keep doing that. And then the second half of that is receiving. I'm going to always accept what happens to me today and ask God, what's your will here? And as I do that, at least what I have found is that the path just starts to lay itself out before you, and what feels aligned for you flows into your experience, and you know it and you feel it and you act on it. Because what's more natural than saying yes to what feels aligned, right? To me, that's the real way we create, is like one breadcrumb at a time, not so much like, let me go meditate and visualize the perfect outcome and then wait for that to happen. It's like that outcome may look way different than you imagined. So we should never get too hung up on the details. Like, leave that up to the universe. Just understand the essence of what I want, which is something I go into detail about in the book as well.
I love that. Yeah, I feel like in my path, I've noticed that it's like at the beginning, and I don't know if this is where I was spiritually or where we were collectively, but I felt like I had to really plan out to manifest things. Like, it had to be like I had to visualize and I had to really have a strategy for what I was creating. And now it's like I have to walk through one door and then the next door opens, and I have to really stay present with what is, instead of kind of over-indexing and planning. I guess the question on that is, there's a lot of women in the audience that want to be better receivers. What is the relationship between the ego and receiving? And what could be some ways in which the ego is preventing women from receiving in a true way so that they can be in better balance?
Awesome question. Well, so in the book, I talk about giving and receiving as being true relationship, but the ego has an inversion of everything that's true, right? So the question is, what is the ego's version of relationship? Because we know it's not giving and receiving. The ego perceives giving as losing, right? What I give is what I lose, says the ego. So it doesn't want to give. So the ego's version of relationship is taking and keeping. Taking and keeping is the opposite of giving and receiving. So like there's two different ways to receive something from somebody. You can take it from them, or they can give it to you and you can receive it. And then in terms of giving, what's the opposite of giving but withholding, right? Keeping and withholding. Ego doesn't want to give because giving is losing. So on the receiving end, it's I need to let life come to me, right? And this is why it's so important to follow the breadcrumb trail and not get so obsessed with outcomes. Because if you're asking the universe to give you something, Jesus said, "He who is faithful with little will be given much." So one thing I've really learned about the universe is that it's always putting us to the test to see, can you put your money where your mouth is?
Yeah.
It's very easy to pray in your room, like, God, I trust you with everything and my life is surrendered to you.
Totally.
And then like you get at a long red light and you're like, what the fuck?
I said the other day, it was like, do your patterns match your prayers? Because I was even
that's good.
I was even praying and I'm like, girl, what did you do today that matches what you were just praying for?
Yeah.
Like, I was watching Love Island for like 4 hours. I was like, I'm post book launch, so I'm kind of in like a different mode.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is not, you have to actually live in the thing. So continue.
Yeah, that's great. Your patterns match your prayers.
Yeah, I'm on my pastor vibe.
I love it. Let's preach, baby.
Yes.
Have some church. Yeah, it's so true. Why should the universe give you way more, money or responsibility or power when you can't even be faithful with the little it's given you? Like, you're already telling the universe, I'm not ready or worthy of that gift yet. So you see why it's good to be very present with your life and pay attention to what's happening in this moment, because you may not connect that the way you interact with the grocery store clerk who's being rude to you is a way you can manifest more money or something, right? The ego won't make those connections because it has a specific outcome in mind. It's going to look like this. And that's actually the second belief of the ego is outcome happiness that I deal with heavily in the book. It's like my happiness depends on outcomes. And so I, the ego, know what that outcome is that will truly satisfy me. And I'm going to go get it.
Yeah.
And that just leads us on the wild rat race
And
that
that's
the
like
ego
your
puts
will,
us
but
on.
God's. I loved how in the second belief you said, the ego continually assures you that the happiness you seek is definitely just around the bend of the next outcome it wants. Yet how many times have we believed this and wound up disappointed? We seek acceptance, status, approval, victory, and wealth as if they had ever truly satisfied us before. Which is, I think, so the trap that so many people are on.
Yeah.
I would say I want to kind of go back for just 1 second. And I want to just double click on the connection between like abundance and what people want. And I think I just really think it's so important because so many people are trying to create something in their life, more abundance, love, deeper relationship, purpose-driven career, like all of that things. And I think they're just really focused on that one lane of thing and putting their energy to that one to have it manifest in that specific way. So I just want to kind of expand upon why that isn't the route and why you should be looking at the micro relationships and the micro things a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a good one to drill in on. I mean, the universe will kind of, in a sense, it'll let you create your reality any way you want. Like if you want to go about the standard method of like vision journal and every day I meditate and I see the outcome, like fine. And it'll kind of let you do that.
Yeah.
But at some point it's gonna,
I always call it matrix play.
yeah. It'll let you play in the matrix.
Yeah.
But at some point for your own good, it's gonna slap you around a little bit and be like, you need to come higher than this. This is not the ultimate end of things. And I think the philosophy for me is that I don't know better than life. I don't know better than God. My imagination is not as great as God's by any means, right? And so, and this is where we can really get into the first belief. I think it kind of addresses this specific question, is the idea of form versus essence. We always think we want a form of some kind. We want a certain paycheck, a person, a relationship, a car, a house, or whatever. And it's actually never the form that actually satisfies us. Hence the famous Jim Carrey quote, right? I wish everybody could get everything they want so they could just find out none of it'll satisfy you. So it's always the essence behind the form that we really want. And so for the belief in lack, the first belief of the ego, in the book, I give a specific philosophy that helps you to requalify each of the three beliefs. And so the one that I use for requalifying the belief in lack is a line from A Course in Miracles that just changed my world when I read it, which says, only what I do not give can ever be lacking. So whenever I feel the emotion of sadness, any kind of sadness, I know for sure that's my emotional guidance system telling me you have a lack belief in your mind right now. It's impossible to feel sad unless you think you are lacking or have lost something that you want or need. So then I go, okay, so it's the belief in lack is why I'm sad. And so I ask, what is it that I believe I'm lacking right now? And go to the essence. Don't go to the form. The ego will distract you for eternity with forms. It's this girl, it's this guy, it's this thing, it's this outcome. Don't play that game with ego. Go to the essence of what I want. I want love, I want connection, right? And when you go to the essence, that's where you understand what it means to say, only what I don't give can ever be lacking. Because if you think it's about forms, it won't make any sense at all. You're like, how do I give a romantic relationship? I can't do that. It's like, well, the romantic relationship isn't really what you want. And they'll say, that's ridiculous. Of course it is. I say, well, didn't you just break up with somebody? Yeah. Wasn't that a romantic relationship? Yeah. If you want it, why did you break up with the person? Because they made me unhappy. Great. So that's what you really want, right? And you're using romantic relationships to get happiness. So we can always give right now the essence of anything we want. And that's part of the giving aspect of relationship. So if I want love in my life, then I should start giving love. So if you're at that position, which we've all been in many times in our life, where post-breakup or whatever, and you're like, I don't feel any love in my life. That is where you need to start giving love. You cannot take love from the universe. That's what the ego tries to do. The universe does not operate on taking and keeping. It operates on giving and receiving. So it's waiting for you to give the essence of what you desire. That's how you tell the universe what you want. You have to give the essence of what you desire to telegraph that to the universe. Whatever you're giving out, the universe sees that and says, oh, this person resonates on this frequency. Let's bring them more of that. But if you're withholding love all the time because you're waiting for someone to come along and just give you love, or someone you can take love from, then you're not going to have a happy outcome because you're now under the ego's thought system. So really, it's like we just have these two ways, these two thought systems, and the first chapter deals with them. There's the thought system of unity or the thought system of separation. Unity is giving and receiving. Separation is taking and keeping.
So interesting, because when you're talking to, I guess I keep thinking about the ways that the ego is tricky and hides. Because it's like someone might hear this and they'd be like,
So tricky.
I could get, they'd be like, okay, I need to give more love. It's like, okay, I'm going to give more love. And the whole time they're giving love.
With an outcome in
Yeah,
mind.
they're like, I want more love back, So how do people catch that? Because women are so intelligent, so powerful, and I work with so many of them. And I also can see the ways that things just kind of flip a little bit, where it is like, okay, so I want to get a relationship as the example. That means I need to give more love. That means I'm going to go out in the world and I'm going to be giving more love, but I'm giving more love the whole time, thinking about how I lack love, and I'm giving love in that, you know what I mean? So how do you kind of watch the tricks of the ego to find the true intention of what you're doing? Because so much of the energetics of things is really what the universe is reading and responding to, not the beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you totally nailed it. And so the meta level of that, metaphysically, if you
I'm
are...
wearing one earring. I just realized that.
Good thing it's on that side, right?
Dude, literally it is on the video side. I
I could take this one out. We can match.
Okay, perfect. It's a new thing.
That's the gay side, right?
Yeah, no. Don't, man.
Darn it.
Don't make me so happy with a gay joke. Literally, key to my heart is literally
nice. We'll talk
jokes.
after the pod then.
Honestly.
So the meta level of this is that if you are giving, if you're being kind to somebody with a expectation in mind because you're trying to get something, the universe doesn't consider that real giving. So it's not real giving is the short answer. But practically, like, how do you catch yourself doing that? is your question. And that's what I deal with in the second belief, that all three of these beliefs, by the way, lack, attachment, and control, they flow into each other. They imply one another. So it begins with, I'm separate from source. I'm separate from life. Therefore, I'm lacking. So now that I'm lacking, nobody can just be satisfied with that idea that I'm lacking. There's a natural impulse of, well, I want to fulfill my lack, right? And so that leads to the second belief of the ego, that if I am lacking, maybe I can go out into the world and fulfill my lack. I can win pleasurable outcomes, and then my lack will be gone. And then that leads to the third belief of, well, who's going to do all of that? Who's going to go out and make life happen and win positive outcomes? I'm going to do it. I'm in control of life. I can tell life what I'm going to do and all of that. So those are the three beliefs. They all imply each other. So that's why you can't just stop with the first belief, because the ego will get you with the second one, right? So Jesus said something about this in Matthew. He said, when you give to the poor, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, which is a very clever, like Semitic way of saying, don't give it to your ego, So the ultimate answer is just keep asking yourself in all of your giving, if it's going to be true giving from unity consciousness, it has to be without any expectation of return. So I'm not giving to get, I'm giving to give. So it's just about checking in with yourself and saying, am I deriving joy just from the act of giving? Am I doing this just because I want to see this person blessed, because I can feel love and compassion for them? That's the only litmus test you need to take yourself through. And so, yeah, when you adopt this practice and you say, okay, I'm going to start giving what I want now, then yeah, you're going to need to check in with yourself regularly and just make sure your intention's pure, because ego is the great hijacker, right? It wants to sneak into everything it can and make it for its own purposes. So expect ego to do that and be on guard for it. But I think when you understand all three of these beliefs, it paints a pretty clear picture of like, these are literally the only three functions the ego has, is to generate the illusion of lack and then create attachments out of that. And then through that, make me believe I'm separate and in control of life. Once it has you on that third belief, it's got you by the horns, right? So we kind of have to back engineer things a little bit. And I think it all has to begin with that original belief in lack.
I want to talk a little bit about the emotions and the emotional guidance system. In it, the chapter on the emotional guidance system, you talk about your emotions are an expression of your innermost being, but not in the way you once thought. Until now, you have believed that your feelings defined you and gave evidence to your negative thoughts. So that good feelings meant you were a good person and bad feelings meant you were a bad person. In reality, however, it is you who attributes all of these meanings to your feelings. Your feelings do not define you, rather you define them. You are never at the receiving end of your emotions. You are always at the creative end, which I just loved. And I want to talk a little bit more about that, because our audience are women and they are, emotions are
The feminine.
the feminine,
Yeah.
So how do we work with that? Like, how as a feminine being, when we have all of these emotions, how do we work with them in a way that's embracing and loving, but also mindful of the ways in which they can impact us?
Yeah. Well, women tend to be more feeling based, intuitive based than men, and they tend to not be as conceptual about everything. But I think that this framework helps bridge masculine and feminine pretty well, because it just gives you a really simple understanding of emotions that, our whole lives, my goodness, like we've been completely led astray by society in how society defines emotions. Classic phrase I bring up is like, how many times have you heard somebody say, well, you can't trust your emotions because your emotions will lead you astray. You got to be practical, Krista. And I get what people mean by that, but the truth is the reverse, right? By the time you feel negative emotions, you've already gone astray somewhere in your mind, because your emotions are reflections of your mind. So actually emotions cannot lead you astray because they're just a feedback device for when you've already gone astray. So by the time I feel negative, I need to not say, well, that emotion is unreliable. Let me toss that emotion out and think pragmatically here. That's called spiritual bypassing, right? I need to bring that emotion closer and say, what are you trying to tell me, sadness? And each emotion, as I said, is trying to point you to one of those three beliefs. If it's sadness, it's my emotional guidance system saying, you have a lack belief at play in your mind right now. And if it's anger, it's my emotional guidance system saying, you have an attachment to an outcome right now. And if I feel fear of any kind, it's my emotional guidance system saying, you're trying to control something and you're not trusting God with it, right? So in that way, all of a sudden, these negative emotions become like friendly messengers, right, from our inner world, and they come to report important information. See, an example I often give, it's not in the book actually, but imagine like a messenger from medieval times or whatever rides in on a horse from a faraway country into the king's chamber and says, "My lord, there's a great army approaching. Rally the troops," or whatever. And the king is like not happy to hear that. It's not good news. It's bad news. But does he spear the messenger and kill the guy? No. That's where the phrase comes from, right? Don't shoot the messenger, because a messenger carrying bad news is a faithful friend. You should be grateful for. So we have to adopt that.
That's a good one.
Yeah, like that perspective of our negative emotions of thank you for warning me that I'm thinking out of alignment with truth. And that's, I think, to answer your real question here, is like, that's the philosophy that I think bridges masculine and feminine really well, is that your emotions are never speaking to your circumstances. They're never telling you what to do, because emotions are non-conceptual. They're a sensation. They don't carry conceptual information. So it's impossible that your emotion could tell you what to do. That's your ego, right? Your ego grabs the emotion and makes a story out of it and tells you what it thinks you should do from it. The emotion itself is just like a mirror. It's reflecting a lack, an attachment, or a control. And that's it. That's all it ever does. And so then we can develop a truly loving relationship with emotions, because we receive them finally. We stop resisting them like enemies or something. And then we can respond to the message they're giving us by giving the right reaction to it, right? So if it's lack, I requalify the lack. If it's attachment, I requalify that. Your emotion is just here to show you and warn you of where you're out of alignment. So if I think about myself in a way that God or the universe does not think about me, then I must feel a negative emotion. Because how else would I know it's wrong, right? If it felt good to think incorrectly about myself, if insecurity felt good, then I would be insecure forever and love it, and I would never change or grow, right? It has to be uncomfortable, because that's what causes us to want to move away from that position. So like if you and I are driving in a car and I'm driving and you're in the passenger seat and you look over and I've dozed off at the wheel, you're probably going to wake me up really abruptly. And if we're heading towards a cliff or a building or something, you're probably going to like slap me on the back of the head. You're not going to be gentle about it. And I wouldn't want you to be. And in the same way, like the universe sees incorrect thoughts and beliefs that dangerously, like they're dangerous to hold. And so it's trying to warn you with negative emotions. And what do? We say, shut up, I hate you. I don't like when you make me feel this way. And we push them away. And so it's no wonder our problems only continue, right?
What are your thoughts on the personification of the ego?
In what sense?
Like how people personify their ego in a way.
Like giving it a name?
Yeah. And they kind of like make it another part of them, or like an entity, or like another aspect of them.
Yeah.
Like, well, how do you feel? Do you feel like that's helpful? Do you feel like that's...
I think it can be helpful for a while. I think any perspective will outlive its usefulness at a certain point. Even these teachings will. Every teaching is just for a certain stage of the spiritual path, right? And once you cross over that stage, you need a new teaching or a wider perspective or something. So if people are doing that and it's working for them, just like any practice or teaching, I say, great, keep rocking with it until it wears itself out. And you need to go to the next level. And so when you understand the ego isn't an entity that you can have a relationship with, then I think that would kind of naturally drop away for people.
Right. Yeah, I think sometimes it can be helpful to have something, personify things maybe in a way to pull it apart from you. Like if you're still in the aspect of like seeing it outside of you. Because a lot of these teachings I was thinking about, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, it's like a lot of it is having the moment or the split second of the separateness from you. Not like the separateness, but you know, the conscious awareness of things. And it really is that. And I've been thinking about this a lot with my clients where I'm like, actually, everyone, you guys need to meditate. Because we need to
Y'all need to meditate.
I'm like, this is what you're paying me the big bucks. You guys got to meditate. Because it's like we actually have to get to the point where we're witnessing the thoughts, or we're witnessing the
Talk
emotions.
about that too.
We're witnessing the beliefs. So can you speak to that? Because I really actually think we can talk about all of this, but if you don't have that opportunity of that second, even when you're at the Google, of the second of split from the ego or split from what's happening and awareness of it so that you could choose something different. Talk about that more and how people can cultivate that.
Yeah. Well, this is why I sort of mentioned this at the beginning, that these two ingredients for freedom are so essential, that you have to have a true desire to be free, because that's what creates real mindfulness and awareness. In order for anyone to be successful with these teachings that I'm giving in the book, like a solid working amount of self-awareness is totally essential, right? I could hand this book to an unconscious person who doesn't care about spirituality, and they're going to think it's gobbledygook, right?
Yeah.
So you got to have some self-awareness, but the deeper key for me about awareness is that, like, silence itself, like being silent, connecting to stillness, silence is just the state of listening, right? When you're silent, you're listening to reality, you're receiving. And so if, like, you're the one who's gotten yourself into this mess, right, with your ego and all your suffering, so maybe you shouldn't try to be the one that gets yourself out of it, right? Maybe surrender that to a higher power, to the Almighty, and say, God, only you can show me out of this darkness. So I'm going to sit still, I'm going to be still and listen, and you show me the way. And that's what awareness is, right? It's you being still and letting the divine, letting higher intelligence show you things, because the ego can't transcend itself. And so if you're trying to do, I'm going to be a better meditator, all of these things reinforce ego at the end of the day, because you're doing something to get a result, which is the second belief of ego, the second function of the ego. And so instead, we actually heal, we transcend, we expand by not doing, which is the paradox. But you'll probably notice, right, that every good spiritual teaching is always put in the negative. It's like, give that up, let go, surrender, don't identify, don't attach, give up control. It's always about not doing something, because, again, you're the one who's gotten yourself into this problem. So more doing isn't going to get you out of it.
That's so interesting. I was like thinking about too of like how in the Bible a lot of it's like a lot of focus is on the don't do, but actually when you read it and like Jesus is teaching, it's on more of like the positive aspects of it.
Yeah.
What were some of the teachings of Jesus that related to like the three beliefs or related to the work that you're doing on the ego that you use?
Yeah, the final chapter of the book is titled Jesus and the Three Beliefs, because I was reading the story of Jesus' 40 days in the wilderness sometime before the book was published. And I was reading it and I just couldn't believe how I'd never seen this before in the story. But Jesus goes through the famous three temptations, right? And each one of them is perfectly each one of the three beliefs. First, he says, if you really are the Son of God, command these stones to turn into bread and satisfy your hunger. Because Jesus is hungry, right? He's been fasting. And Jesus requalifies it with scripture, right? And then the second temptation.
What does he say with scripture?
He says, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. So he's like, I don't make my abundance, God does, essentially, is what he's saying. Super gangster.
I know. I'm just, there's nothing hotter than me than this.
Totally, right?
I'm like, just talk that talk.
Talk about Jesus, baby.
Yeah.
Second temptation is he takes him to a mountaintop and he shows him all of like Jerusalem or something. And he says, if you worship me, I'll give you all these treasures of this world and power over everything in these kingdoms, which is the second belief, right? Attachment, desire, external fulfillment. And it's very much what ego does for our attachments, right? Whatever it is the ego desires, it'll crack the whip on you to make you its slave to go get its outcome. That's what addiction is. Like, ego's always this cruel taskmaster. And so, yes, ego will give you the material desires you want, but they wear off very quickly. And the price you pay is I've got to be the ego's slave, essentially. And so in perfect order, the devil, Satan, says to Jesus, if you serve me, if you worship me, I'll give you everything you want. Like, that's exactly what the ego says to everybody, right?
Yeah.
And then the third temptation is he takes Jesus to the top of the temple and he says, if you really are the Son of God, throw yourself off of this temple and save yourself and prove that you are all powerful, right? And that's the third belief in control, right? Like, prove you can save yourself. You can do it, right? You're the Son of God. You're powerful. Do it. And he requalifies it by saying, no, you never put God to the test, which to me is like, whenever I try to get something from the position of my own personal power, it's like I'm inventing a second power, because metaphysically, there's only one power in the universe. That's God. There is no other power by which one can act. So all of us, everyone is always acting from the God power, the God energy that infuses everyone and animates everyone. So you can't act separately or alone. And to even try to do so is like you're inventing a second power. And so the one of the requalifications that I give in the book is, two powers do not exist. I am resting in one power. And that's something you would want to repeat anytime you get into stress and fear and worry about your life, is realize, oh, what I'm really feeling is that my ego is trying to make itself its own God and its own power. It's going to do it by itself. And so of course that feels stressful, because that's impossible, number one. And number two, I don't need to do that. I can let God do everything on my behalf as long as I stay in cooperation, in relationship. God does everything, right? I'm not the doer. So although that's a little more of a philosophical one of the three, I think it's probably the most important one to understand.
That's so cool. Okay, so this is a good one for you. So God. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about this, where I've been thinking a lot about how God is coming a lot more online, or people are talking about God a lot more. People are using the word God. People are finding more comfort in that expression. And I'm going to sound like I'm being judgmental, and so this probably isn't the voice of God, but I'm also getting curious about how a lot of people use the word God, and it might not be the voice of God, but it might be the voice of the ego.
For sure.
So, yeah, can you talk a little bit about that and how we can know if it's the voice of God or the voice of the ego in ourselves, and maybe seeing it in other people? Because I think in the spiritual community, maybe outside, I've even seen it outside of the spiritual community, where there's just a lot of people using the name of God, but it's actually a different type of voice. So can you say more?
Yeah, again, this is where the understanding the philosophy underneath it all really settles it for me. And
Philosophy,
that is,
say more, like from the Bible or just in general?
no, like spiritual philosophy, like metaphysics or something.
Yeah.
Really, I think really it's ontology. It's the nature of God, the being of God. And what is the nature of God? Because as we know, God can't change. Even the Bible says that, Isaiah 45:5, God can't change. And so we should know what God's nature is, because then it's a lot easier to discern which voice we're hearing. And so, for example, and I love the law of ones kind of breakdown of positive polarity, negative polarity, but the idea is this: on the in the thought system of unity, or the way that God's true nature is, it's always the part serving the whole, and the whole serving the part. So the whole serves all of its parts, and the parts in turn serve the whole. So God always speaks like that. So whatever God is saying to you or urging you to do, it will always be something that has everybody in mind. So like on the positive polarity, in unity, everyone wins together. It's impossible that somebody can win while another person loses in unity consciousness, right? So my win is your win. Like literally, even when you grow spiritually in a room by yourself, you show up the next day and you're kinder to me and all of that. And so I win too, right? You always win together in God's thought system. And so ego, juxtaposing that, is the opposite. It's the part taking from the whole to serve itself at the cost of the whole. And so you can kind of use that as your litmus test, right? Of, does this thought or does this desire to do this thing, is it all about me and making me happier without anyone else in mind? Then it's definitely ego. So there's a way, it doesn't mean I shouldn't want that or whatever. It means let me requalify that back to unity again. So if it's whatever the desire is, it's like, how can I go about manifesting this desire in a way that would benefit everybody involved too? That to me is the easiest differentiation between God and ego. God is unconditional love. God is not capable of leaving anybody out. And so the more we become like God, the more we think like that, right? Is we just really want to bless everyone, and we extract and derive more and more joy, more and more fulfillment from helping other people. That is a really like high level of spiritual attainment, I think, when you genuinely, like, you wake up every day looking forward to serving and blessing and helping, because that's actually what makes you the happiest. Like maybe you still watch Netflix and you have your favorite TV show or whatever.
Thank you.
You like to surf. Yeah, that's all cool. But what makes you the most happy, what lights you up the most, is seeing other people blessed. Like we should all strive to get to that place.
Okay, I've always been someone who loves the idea of adventure. Like, give me a new trail to run or a random side street to wander down, and I'm totally in. But as a mom, I've also realized the real adventure is just getting out the door with enough energy to keep up with the day. And that's where having a go-to nourishing routine honestly has saved me. Enter Kachava, aka my not so secret weapon. It's a whole body meal shake that somehow manages to be packed with 85 plus superfoods and still tastes really good. I'm a chocolate girl though, through and through, but sometimes I'll do the vanilla with almond milk or frozen banana and a little cinnamon. And it's like a fancy smoothie from a cafe without the $16 price tag, if you know what I mean. But what sold me, it's not just protein, though it has 25 grams of clean plant-based protein. It's also got fiber, adaptogens like maca, superfoods like sacha inchi, and even ingredients like goji berry and chia that I used to buy separately and never use, let's be honest. So I'm so happy they're in there. They're just all mixed in. I usually whip my own up with a quick breakfast or post-workout shake, and it actually fills me up without that weird powdery aftertaste I've had with other drinks. And I know you know what I mean. I feel focused, satisfied, and like I actually gave my body something it wants to say thank you for. So if you're playing curious but not fully vegan, no worries. Kachava is for everyone. Plus, they've got a love it guarantee, so it's risk-free to try. But I have a feeling you're going to get hooked. Fuel your day with Kachava. Go to kachava.com and use code almost30 for 15% off your next order. That's KACHAVA.com, code almost30 for 15% off. Have you noticed that fees are everywhere lately? Like you book a weekend rental and you have a cleaning fee. Buy concert tickets, there's a processing fee no one can explain. Even ordering delivery comes with a service charge. It's like we're getting nickel and dime just for living life. It's very annoying. And those fees feel especially frustrating when money's tight. That's why I love Chime. So with Chime, there are no monthly fees, no overdraft fees, and no minimum balance fees. It's basically banking that doesn't punish you for being a human trying to get ahead. Personally, I've had times where I was trying to stick to a budget and surprise bank fees totally threw me off. Chime gives me peace of mind. I know what's coming in, what's going out, and I'm not getting charged for just using my money. Banking shouldn't cost you money. And with Chime, it doesn't. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/almost30. That's chime.com/almost30.
Chime is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. Members FDIC. Spot me eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Timing depends on submission of payment file. Fees apply at out-of-network ATMs. Bank ranking and number of ATMs according to U.S. News and World Report 2023. Chime checking account required.
When we talk about the ego in relationships, I think for a lot of people that are operating in relationships, a lot of the women, especially in our community, which I think we've actually talked about this before, because a lot of the women are doing a lot of spiritual development work, personal growth. And they're in relationships with men that maybe aren't doing that type of work. So how do your ego beliefs impact your relationships, especially if you're doing the work and the men are not?
This topic comes up a lot in my 4D university calls.
Is it mostly women or what's the vibe?
Yeah, but not always, but
Yeah.
it's definitely more women for sure. It's just such a hot topic.
I know.
And it's so relevant to any of us that are on a spiritual path. It's like, what greater catalyst is there than romantic relationships? So there's so much nuance to this, but my general advice to my students who are going through this problem of, I think it's a problem that every single one of us, every single person listening to this who is on a conscious spiritual path has already experienced this or will, which is just the outgrowing of relationships. Of course, you're going to outgrow relationships. How many people in your life are as interested in spiritual ascension as you are? Probably very few. So you should expect that you're going to outgrow certain relationships. And so to me, that's become way less of a big deal than it used to be, because it's like, yeah, no, this is good. Like I should outgrow my relationships. Why not? But it's the way I deal with that outgrowing that makes all the difference. And so in a romantic setting, of course, it's a lot more prone to being messy and painful and convoluted. But I think, again, the general philosophy you should have in mind in a romantic relationship is, I'm not here to take love from this person. That's ego and will always lead to suffering. I want a partnership where I can truly give love to somebody and receive their freely given love. And so if you're in a relationship where your partner is trying to take love from you, if they're clingy, codependent, jealous, all of these things, then that's a super out of alignment relationship. So I don't need to know anything else to know that this relationship is not for me anymore. When you start living this stuff, it reorients your whole life and your priorities pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You're like, no, giving and receiving is the only way I find happiness. And my goal in life is to always be in that state. And so if I can be in that state everywhere else, but every time I'm with my romantic partner, we're in this special relationship, taking love from each other, then it's going to feel really discongruent for you. And you're going to keep suffering until you finally break and leave the relationship. And so the big freaking challenge, as we both know, is like making that decision long before it gets to the point where it's so messy you just have to leave. We all struggle with that. It's super difficult because there's history there, there's sentimentality. You've been through a lot of life with this person, so it's so hard for the ego to break its attachments. But this is where the philosophy of giving and receiving really helps, because if you really do love this person and you want their best, you can see how if you're in a dysfunctional relationship, an abusive relationship, it is not loving to your partner to be their target board every day and perpetuate their narcissism or their abuse or their insecurity. And so the question we should all ask is my presence in their life perpetuating their issue? Am I giving them free opportunity to be more judgy, insecure, jealous, whatever? Then that's not loving. And I should want to leave this relationship for their own good and have that conversation with them, of course. I think you should always communicate these things. But yeah, you can't make somebody want to grow with you. And that's the tough part of being on a spiritual path in relationship, is that you got to take your time in finding the right partner. And even if you do find the right partner, you can't guarantee that you're not going to outgrow each other or just kind of go different directions later in life. So not having attachments to outcomes when you go into a relationship is how you set yourself up for success. I've made this mistake in every relationship I've had in my life, where I go into it with an outcome in mind of this should be my person, we should be together forever. And you'd be shocked just how much conflict having that expectation will lead to.
I know.
Versus going in saying, look, I have no idea if this is my person.
True.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
This might not be my person. I'm going to find out.
I'm like, what Abraham Hicks says, I like you very much. Let's see how this goes.
Totally.
That's what she says. She's like, that's what we should all be doing. And that's where I realized I was in suffering where, you know, at the beginning of dating, I would meet every man and I'd be like, are you my husband?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like, and then I'd start dating someone. I'd be like, are you going to be the person I'm with forever? Are you going to be the person I wake up with every single day? And I'm like, no, like that is just, I do think I'm grateful for having been divorced, because it does give me a different perspective where I think,
Same.
you know, like I think if I wasn't, I would be way more interested in the attachment and way more in the belief of this has to be forever. Now I'm like, yeah, this will be a season. And, you know, like I'm probably like a little like on the other side where I'm like, yeah, this will be a beautiful season of my life. Because I realize that it is more painful when because then I look at someone from the perception of a fear of, okay, if you're my person forever, then you have to be this certain way. And it actually keeps them in a way in which they can't evolve and grow into the person that they're meant to be, because I'm holding them to, you have to be the person that's good for me in this now moment, to be the person that I'm going to, you know, and it's like not actually giving them the space of being a human, of like, this works for now. And then they can also grow into what could even be better for me in the relationship at the time.
Well, what you just said of, is this my person or whatever?
Yeah.
Like translate that to ego's language.
Giving, or this is receiving.
What you're saying is this my outcome?
That's a good one.
That's all it is.
Yeah, that's so true.
And so maybe we can,
And control a little bit.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But like that feeling of specialness of like, are you the one?
Yeah.
It means, are you the outcome?
Yeah.
Which means you're going to create all my suffering soon. Like that's literally what you're
Wow.
saying, because attachments have to lead to suffering. And by the way, expectation is the subtlest form of attachment. Even to have an expectation of somebody is a form of attachment. So my students will ask things like, well, come on, Aaron, if somebody disrespects me verbally and I get upset, don't I have every right to be upset? It's like, well, yeah, of course. But the why are you upset is because you had an expectation. Nobody should ever talk to me XYZ way.
So true.
Even that's an attachment, right? You shouldn't have any attachment or expectation of how anybody should treat you. Why? Why do you need to?
Okay, what's a standard then? Like, what would be so women would be like, well, I have standards.
Yeah.
Is that expectation?
Yeah, the ego always tries to frame this as, so you're just saying I should be a doormat for everybody?
That's so true. The ego goes like to the opposite.
Yeah.
I'll notice that in conversations with like partners or something. It's like, oh, so you never want me to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Let everybody
Oh, so I can
abuse
never
you.
talk to another woman in my whole life?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, no, I want you to stop getting women's numbers at the bar.
Want you to literally stop cheating on me.
Yeah, no, honestly.
So on this note, I think the best place to go is when we're in a relationship with somebody that is not based in giving and receiving, it will continue to feel more out of alignment the more we want to be in a truly loving relationship. And so when we talk about boundaries, that word, I get what it means. I don't personally love the word, but you can use it loosely.
Yeah.
Because in a real sense, truth is your boundary, right?
Yeah.
The truth is what should be your boundary. And so when somebody violates what is true, which means what is loving, right? Then I should not have any interest in participating in that.
Yeah.
So the thing is, like, if somebody's disrespectful to me, why should I get upset about that? That's a pure reflection of them and where they're at. I think I say this in the book, but it's something like, the way that other people treat me reveals their karma. The way I respond to how they treat me reveals my karma, right? So I shouldn't have any expectation that anyone should treat me a certain way, because I want everybody to be where they're at. Hey, if that guy's having a bad day, he should have a bad day. Like, who am I to say you should be nice to me when you're having a bad day? But do I want to be in an unloving relationship? No. So like, I'm going to, cut that person out of my life or whatever. Like, there's going to be things you'll do just because it feels out of alignment. And so we're always loving, we're always kind. We never put anybody out of our heart. But I hope I can give somebody permission right now to know that you are under no obligation to have anybody in your life. You are not obligated to keep somebody in your life that's out of alignment, unless you're trying to help them or something, right? Then that's a different reason. But if it's a romantic relationship or a friendship or a boss, like, it doesn't matter. If it's not a loving relationship, you shouldn't have an interest in being in it, right? And so you'll naturally withdraw from such people. And so there's no one right way that looks. If you're on a date with some guy and he says something rude, like, you have every right to be like, oh, check, please, But it definitely
I'll just
doesn't
start
mean...
making jokes, and then he'll say more, and then we'll be in this thing where he's just saying more and more and more, and I'm just making more and more jokes, and then I'm like, what am I doing?
Sounds like you've been on some dates before.
Oh my God, the way that, doubts protest too much. Like the way that men will just say, it's actually crazy. If people listen to people talk, you'll hear every single thing you need to know.
Yeah.
If you're a conscious person that's logged on for a conversation, everything that you need to know about that person will be said.
Oh yeah.
Their priorities, their standards, their life, like, it's like crazy. I think people just don't listen.
True.
Like,
well, see, silence is listening.
Yeah.
If you're waiting for the next thing to say on a date, then
No.
you're going to be missing all the important information
Yes.
that this person's ego is giving to you, right?
Yes. 100. I'm listening intently. I'm like, there's this guy, he's like, you're like a 10. And he didn't mean like a 10 out of 10. He's like, you're like a 10. Like, you're really like got a lot of energy and questions. I was like, I'm fully logged on for this conversation.
Like, I'm trying to not waste my life.
No,
actually.
honestly, he's like, I'm a 7. You should be a 7. I was like, that's your preference. I was like, that's not my preference. I'm preference to be a 10.
You should be like me is the most ego thing ever.
I know, honestly. It's so true. But then I said it back to him. I was like, you should be like me. Our egos were like, we should be like each other. I just want to underline, double click the one part that was profound for me that we said a little bit more, just because I think this is applicable for a lot of women. So I just want to slow it down to expand it on women in dating that go into dating situations with the node of, are you my husband? Are you my person? Is this the one? And how that is the ego in a lot of ways. And then how that leads to attachment, because then will you say why that why does that lead to suffering? Why does that belief lead to suffering?
The attachment to, is this my person,
Yeah.
or whatever, because no form can satisfy you. It's impossible. No person can satisfy you. It does not matter. I just watched an interview with a billionaire the other day who was talking about this, where they were like, I'm significantly more unhappy now than when I was like a young 20-year-old upstart, poor, living with my mom. Like, I was happier then in my life than I am now.
Tale as old as time.
Exactly. So don't fall for that. It's the greatest ego illusion that something, some outcome can make me happy. I spend 2 whole chapters dealing with this in the book for this reason, because attachment is just like, it's the stickiest part of ego that just gets all of us. Because it's not wrong to want anything. You absolutely have the right to want anything. You should want a beautiful, fulfilling, romantic relationship. You should want it all. But want it for the essence, not the form, right? Don't imagine yourself with, the dreamiest guy or girl who's going to make you look so good or whatever. That's vanity. It will always fail you. Dream of an amazing connection, right? Dream of sharing your soul, your life with somebody who's on the same frequency as you, and all the beautiful experiences of life and God and love that you can have together. That's a divine desire. And I think it's the 6th chapter in the book. I have a little section on divine desires. It's like God is desire. All desire comes from God. But ego, being the great hijacker, grabs onto our divine desires and misdirects them to a form of some sort. And that's where we go wrong. So the desire is never wrong. There's always a pure, innocent essence, right, behind everything, because everyone's desire is to be happy. So as weird and like sort of megalomaniacal as this may sound, even a murderer has an innocent, good desire at the very core of what they're doing. It's just wrapped over so much suffering and delusion and confusion, right? But ultimately, they just want to be happy. And they've gone down a path where the ego has continually distorted their thinking and upped the ante until they're at the point of like killing somebody, right? But if you trace it all the way back, there's just a little child inside of everybody that's like, I just want to be happy. And so we got to get really serious on, okay, then what really gives true happiness? And if we know what it is, then we should be very committed to watching our mind through the day, because as you've said earlier, like ego is unbelievably crafty. It's exceptionally good at pretending to be you, and it knows how to put everything into your voice. It whispers thoughts to you as if they're your own. And so unless you have that inner litmus test of, is this based on giving and receiving or taking and keeping, then it's going to control you pretty easily. And so that for me has been like the guiding compass of my life is this giving and receiving, or is this taking and keeping? And when I ask that question, I've never had more than a second to get the right answer.
In A Course in Miracles, it says, an untrained mind can accomplish nothing.
Yeah, such a good quote.
That's such a good one. It's so good.
Such a bar.
Such a bar. It's just, what's so interesting is actually I was thinking about Danielle, our friend Danielle Laporte, Desire Map, and how Desire Map actually kind of has this frame of, sort of the frame before was like, what are the goals that you have? Say it's to run a marathon. You're actually not doing the goal to run the marathon. You're doing the goal to feel empowered or feel,
right.
So it's like actually going to not the thing, but the feeling.
Yeah.
And how it's like our desires are the feeling and sort of that instead of the ego, which is very, very interesting. So it's kind of an interesting thing that I was connecting. I said Tale as Old as Time earlier because I do want to hear, in the book, I really loved this example. I love allegory. I love storytelling. Like I just love Disney movies and sort of all the layers in them. Can you talk to us about the Beauty and the Beast story?
Yeah. I can't remember when this clicked for me, but I did a YouTube video like 5 years ago or something on Beauty and the Beast as the perfect archetype of what it really means to heal the shadow. And so there's so much juiciness in it that we could unpack. But the basic idea I give in the book is like, the beast represents our shadow self. Even like the story, it's all so well written how, he's in this castle. He's a great prince or whatever with all this power. He's all these aristocrats in his palace. And when the witch comes in that he makes fun of and mocks, and then she curses him, all the people in his palace turn into these inanimate objects as well. And the prince turns into a hideous beast, right? So this represents our shadow side being traumatized and fragmented. And all of these, the broom, the teapot, all the little characters represent different aspects of the psyche, right? So beauty represents like the soul, our true essence. And she happens into the castle one day looking for her father. And even just the interaction to me with Beauty and the Beast is so perfect with the shadow, because Beast is like, he's like jumping through the shadows, following her, and she kind of hears somebody, but she can't see anything. He's always remaining concealed until he's ready to come out and show himself. And so when he finally comes out of the shadow, he's like snarling and like, look how hideous I am. Go away, right? And Beauty, she gives him a different reaction than he's used to. She doesn't cower in fear or run away, but she gets curious. And then he retreats back to the shadow because he's not used to that response, right? He wants everyone to be afraid of him and run away from him. Isn't that perfect, for our shadow? So as the story goes, they start to have this loving relationship, right? That develops. And slowly but surely, Beauty brings out all the light qualities of the beast as he gradually learns to love her and accept her love and feel safe with her love. Gaston comes along at the end of the story representing, the ego and wanting to win and be the best. I mean, Gaston is like the perfect depiction of like the male ego. Everything ego wants to be is Gaston, right? And so the shadow and the ego have a fight. And I think that that's just brilliantly perfect as well, because the ego does that, right? The ego fights our shadows. The ego is ultimately what puts things into the shadow, because the ego decides what it will accept or reject. It says, I don't like this part of me. This part of me doesn't earn me love. So to the shadows with you, I reject you. So we build up more and more fragmentation over our life as these parts of our self get shattered off and buried into the shadow. So you have this great battle between Beast and Gaston. And at the end of the story, as we know, hopefully not a spoiler alert, watch the movie, you're kidding me? He sacrifices his life for Belle, for the Beauty, right? And the signature moment to me of healing the shadow is when Beauty runs to his side and she's crying and she kisses him on the forehead while he's dead, right? And that kiss brings him back to life, because the original curse was only true love's kiss can bring you back to life again. So it's like only true love can heal the shadow. It's perfect. And the key point to me is that when Beauty kisses the Beast, she loves him as the Beast, right? Not as his potential to be a prince. He once was a handsome prince and maybe could be again. So I'll love him to get him to turn into a prince, right?
Good one.
She loves him as the Beast. If he had never changed and stayed the Beast, Belle would have still loved him and lived her life with him, right? So like that's the takeaway message, I think, and that's why he gets transformed, because it was true love of why she kissed him. And he floats into the air and all this light explodes out of his body, right? And he transforms back into the handsome prince, which represents the healing of the shadow. So the message is, you can't love your pain, kind of like you said earlier, right? With an expectation or an outcome in your mind of like, come here, shadow, and let me love you so I can get rid of you forever.
Yeah.
You torment me,
Yeah.
That's not real love. You have to say to your shadow, look, insecurity, I love you so much. If you're always this insecure, it wouldn't make any difference to me. Come here, let's hang out. Be my best friend. I'll always be here for you.
Yeah.
And then insecurity feels safe to reveal itself into the light and be healed. But if we're loving our shadows in order to heal them, like loving in order to eliminate isn't love, and our shadow feels that.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be loved like that. Nobody wants to be loved like that. We want to be loved truly and sincerely.
Yeah, in parts work. So internal family systems parts work is what I practice a lot with my clients. And
yeah, parts work is great.
yeah, it's like the self. It's not the self when there's an expectation to change. So I see
There
that
you go.
all the time in parts work. We'll have something where it's like, oh, there's the part of me that's like self-sabotaging or the perfectionist or whatever. And it's like, we'll like get to her and it's like, okay, we're getting to know her. And it's like, okay, well, so how do I get her to stop like doing that? I'm like, oh, we got to go back to square one. We got to go back to self, because then you're in a part that's wanting to change.
Yeah.
So it's like you have all these parts that just kind of create this situation that kind of keeps you from the true acceptance. And Carl Rogers talks about the paradox of transformation. He's like the father of therapy as we know it today.
Nice.
He worked with Carl Jung a little bit, but he talks about the fact that in order to change something, we have to accept it fully first. Like nothing will change without our full acceptance and truth.
Yeah.
And I think that's also with relationships. That's with like so much of it, like the full acceptance of things as they are, or the full acceptance of ourselves really gives us the space to really evolve and change.
100%. And that's why this practice of these three beliefs and meeting the emotion as the messenger, right, allows you to do just that. Because your emotions are a guidance system. They are a reflection, not a direction. And so when you treat emotions as they really are, when you allow them to fulfill their function and communicate this message, from your soul, right? Your soul, when you're sad, your soul is literally trying to tell you, I'm so tired of believing in lack. It's wearying, it's exhausting. I don't want to believe in lack anymore. And your sadness is reflecting that. So when you say, thank you, sadness, for reminding me that I'm still holding on to this lack belief, and you're bringing it close, you're validating it, you're giving it a purpose and a reason to exist. Like, what's more accepting than that? The gratitude and listening and then responding. That's true acceptance.
I always have women, it's like channeling the divine mother, like their inner mother. That's like the most loving, nurturing aspect of themselves to kind of like witness and be with it, because it can be nice to bring in like archetypal, like examples and archetypal energy to kind of move with it, because I think sometimes we don't really understand, like when we're kind of creating frame of reference within our mind of how to work with these parts and these energies, it can be helpful to bring something else online so that you can kind of relate to that until you create like your own internal system of things. What, like, A Course in Miracles is, you know, just everything to me, and you're such an amazing teacher of it. So what aspects of A Course in Miracles did you see within the work around the ego? Like, what are some of your favorite parts?
Oh man, it helped me so deeply with understanding everything I teach about in the book. And I reference it a number of times in the book. But the Course says that the ego is the belief in separation, right? And that's absolutely true. But what I found is I didn't really know what to do with that, because it's like, how do you unbelieve in separation? It's so pervasive. It's just like human thought itself is based on separation. So it's almost like I can't do anything with that definition, is how I felt. And it wasn't until I started to understand, largely through reading the Course, and the Course does talk a lot about lack, I started understanding, oh, separation plays out through the human experience as lack, attachment, and control. So lack, attachment, control is what separation does, or what the ego does, because it is the belief in separation. And then the Course also famously says, the kingdom of heaven is the awareness of perfect oneness and the knowledge that there is nothing else. And that second part is really important too. And that is the experience I had on the balcony at Google, right? When I flipped into that state of consciousness all of a sudden.
Was it like a Kundalini awakening, would you say?
I didn't experience a Kundalini in that moment, but I'm sure it had something to do with it. But it was that awareness of perfect oneness and the knowledge that there is nothing else. So I experienced what the Course describes, like firsthand. And coming out of that was so helpful for understanding these teachings, because I thought to myself, you know, I can still remember quite well what my quality of consciousness was like in that state. And so if I can recall that state of consciousness, I can sort of try to back engineer it and remember what was not there in those 2 weeks that is here now, versus the opposite. I understood, like, no, it was that something was not there, not that there was something new there. It's like that, I know that state is still in me. It's just so covered up by this convoluted ego, because it didn't go away until the ego came back and covered it up. So I knew, like, I didn't lose that state, but it's as if I did. It's like I did, because the ego came back to cover it over. So I kept asking, what was not there that's here now? And it was the belief in lack, my attachments, my need to control. In those 2 weeks, there was total surrender to God, like flow state, you know, living in a total flow state. I couldn't even have an expectation of what's the next moment going to be like, and what should I do in the next moment? It was just like visceral presence and peace of mind. And that's the way I teach to requalify the belief in attachments. In the second belief is that we have to get really square with this fact that what I want is not an outcome. Period. End of story. I am not looking for an outcome in this life. Even just to say that to yourself right now could be a pretty like sobering experience for somebody, right? Because we've hardly even questioned up until now that in our whole life that we're not here to get outcomes. All of human society says we are. But when you take a radical stand for your soul and say, no, my soul did not come here to get a specific outcome. My soul came here to experience itself, to evolve, to grow and expand. And so what I really want is happiness or peace of mind in this moment. And so if happiness is an expanded state of consciousness, I can't have an attachment and have happiness at the same time, because attachment is a contracted state of consciousness, right? I literally have to localize my attention onto one thing, and I want this outcome. And so I'm constricting all of my attention and awareness onto this outcome I want. And so it has to feel contracted. That's what a negative emotion is energetic contraction. So it should be an obvious oxymoron, right? That I can't have an attachment and be happy now. So do I really want to be happy in a future moment more than I want to be happy right now? And when you ask those kinds of questions, you get very clear answers like, no, I want happiness now. I don't want to always be chasing a future happiness. But what I say in the book is happiness in the future makes no sense at all. It doesn't exist, right? If I can't be happy right now, why should I think I'll be happy in a future moment?
Yeah, how you do the work is the work. I feel like that's so much of our human experience, especially in the West, of like retirement. You know, like planning for retirement, planning to be happy in retirement, slaving your life away until you get to that point. What would you say is one simple daily practice that people can do to help themselves in the process of waking up to the ego and then working with the beliefs?
Waking up to the ego and working with the beliefs. Again, I really think everything kind of hinges around the emotional guidance system. So if somebody reads the book or they only read chapter 3, and they only took away what's in that chapter, I think it would just tremendously benefit their life, because everything goes wrong for us when it comes to our emotions, and understanding them is so important. So I think the best practice from the book is just this idea of I should be always monitoring my inner guidance, my inner state of being. Because if we want to make it even simpler than 3 beliefs, we could say there's really just two functions your state of being has, contraction or expansion. And so all positive emotions are different forms of expansion. All negative are different forms of contraction. So I can really just check in with my state of being throughout the day. And whenever I notice that I'm in a contracted state of being, that's when I should do the practice from the book of go to that emotion, look at the underlying belief it's trying to reflect to you, and ask that important question. Okay, what is it that I think I'm lacking? What am I attached to? What am I trying to control? And again, good questions get good answers. I've never had any trouble personally getting those answers when I ask those questions. And I haven't heard from any of my students that say, I asked that question, I never get an answer. It's like, no, you kind of always know what your attachments are, what you're trying to control. You just aren't looking at it. You're not asking the question. So I think asking those questions would be the pivotal practice to take away from the book.
This episode is brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack sponsor. IQ Bar is the better for you plant protein-based snacks made with brain-boosting nutrients to refuel, nourish, and satisfy hunger without the sugar crash. I brought a bunch of IQ bars with me the other day. I had a busy day. I had a few interviews. I had an event, and I just knew that I needed to make sure I was nourishing myself with food that I knew the ingredients were clean, were good for me, were great for my brain and my body, would satiate me, and were yummy. So I ended up having 2 IQ bars that day. I had one mid-morning and then mid-afternoon. It was just a great interim snack. So these are plant protein bars. I like getting my protein in any way that I can. High quality ingredients, like I mentioned, and it's totally free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMO, and artificial sweeteners. And they come in 9 delicious flavors. My favorite is the banana nut, always and forever, but they have flavors like chocolate chip and chocolate sea salt, toasted coconut chip, lemon blueberry, peanut butter chip. They do it right. They're so delicious, so chewy. You're going to love the texture. If you don't believe me, there's over 25,000 5-star reviews and counting, so just know that. They also have hydration mixes and mushroom coffees in addition to their brain and body boosting bars. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus get free shipping. To get your 20% off, text ALMOST, ALMOST, to 64,000. Text ALMOST to 64000. That's ALMOST to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was something, just to that point, to double click on it. You were talking in the book about how just a sign of the cunning of the ego is the sort of attachment to the details of things, and the attachment to the just in a situation, as an example, I had a client a while ago, and it was a situation with a relationship, and she was so obsessed with like, he texted me at this time, and then I replied at this time, and it was always like this, like,
Yeah.
following, tracking the conversation and all of these things, but it was hiding what was the truth of like, I feel scared, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I have fear, or whatever the things are. And I think when we find ourselves just in sort of the control of the details and sort of like the mind with things, I think we're sort of off base there.
100%. The term for that in the book is outcome happiness, right?
Love that.
That you could also define the second belief as outcome happiness, or the belief in outcome happiness. And so the requalification is no reason happiness. That's what we should be striving for. Is true happiness actually arises for no reason at all.
Yeah.
It's just when you're in touch with your inner self and you're without attachment in this moment, right? When you're truly at peace with the present moment, you feel a lightness come over you, and you're funny, you're humorous, you're joyful, you're bubbly, like you're your best self, because you're not looking to the next moment anymore. So we've got to start practicing that as well, which is part of the asking these questions, I think. Is my happiness dependent on an outcome right now? Am I waiting for an outcome to be happy? And like, if you're in the granular details of like, he texted at this time, like, you know, for sure your ego is chasing a specific outcome.
Yeah.
He should text me this many minutes apart from my text. You're already in the weeds, right?
Yeah.
Let's back up. Let's get back to no reason happiness. I don't need him to do anything for me to be happy.
Yeah. When you're in the weeds, you're not in the right place.
You need a weed whacker.
You need a weed whacker.
Which is what this book is.
Exactly. This is a weed whacker for your brain. That's the whole thing.
Well, I actually do give an analogy like that in the book of the corn maze. Of if I've always walked this one direction in a cornfield, then I've got this well-worn path, super easy to walk through.
Like, I'm from Ohio. I'm in that maze.
Yeah, you know all about
I'm like,
corn.
I know about that maze.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is an example I can get
I can
behind.
relate to, yeah. There's no corn stalks to push through.
Yeah.
So it's easy, right? And so you kind of want to go that direction. But when that path always leads you to suffering, you start to say, I need a new path, right?
Yeah.
And you've got to just walk a different direction through the cornfield, which means you're going to meet some resistance. It's going to be hard. You're going to have to forge a new path. But every day as you keep walking that new path, the stalks get laid down, and eventually you've got a new path, and the old one gets replaced by nature, right? That's how our brain works, is like, you've been always identifying with these thoughts. You've been giving them your attention and your belief. You've been believing in lack, attachment, and control your entire life.
Yeah.
And most of your thoughts and decisions are predicated on these three beliefs. Again, they are all pervasive in human consciousness, and they cause all forms of suffering. So like, don't expect that you're going to requalify these beliefs overnight. This book isn't going to solve anybody's problems overnight. It just gives you the tools you need and the understandings I think you need to begin requalifying. And as somebody who's been using this practice for the better part of 5 years now, I can tell you, like, I look back and it's almost like falling asleep at night. When you think about what moment did I fall asleep last night? You can't really remember, right? You remember getting tired and laying there, and then you wake up. And spiritual awakening is a lot like that. When you start to transcend these illusions of lack and attachment and control, their influence gradually leaves your life slowly but surely. So for me, it's never happened in some amazing fashion, but so slowly, day by day, I take as many opportunities a day to check in with my state of being and say, oh, there's some stress in my system right now. I must be trying to control something. What is it, God? And then boom, immediately I see, oh, I'm trying to control this situation. And so then I just take a moment and I surrender that to God and say, God, you know better than I. I have no idea what should happen here. I think I do, but I know I'm wrong. So God, you show me, you guide the way. I surrender this to you. That is requalifying, right? You're just looking at what's not true, acknowledging that it isn't true. The Course calls this the positive use of denial, right? It should feel good to deny what's not true. And then you affirm what is true in its place. So you're just giving yourself a wider perspective over and over. And so we have this phrase, missing the forest for the trees, right? Ego's in the trees all the time and is trying to drag you into the trees. And so requalifying is zooming out to the forest perspective as often as you can and reminding the ego, nope, you're actually in a forest. You're actually in a forest. And eventually the ego, you drain it of energy, right, by doing this, and it's sort of forced to concede to the higher perspective. And so it's a gradual thing. It's not an overnight thing.
Yeah, it's I'm still working on it, but I'm doing my
Hey,
doing
you
my
and
very
me
best.
both, girl.
I know. What's one thing, like one quote or one passage, maybe from the Bible, Course in Miracles, or just something that you've read recently that just really stuck with you, that you were like, whoa, that's profound.
Well, I read a lot of philosophy. So,
Who's your faves?
oh gosh. Well, I'm a big fan of some of the Greek philosophers for sure. Plotinus, number one, Aristotle. I love Thomas Aquinas, even though he's more in the Catholic tradition. But I also read authors from Advaita traditions like Paul Brunton, and I like Christian Science a lot. So there's a lot of really great authors that
Who's
I
a
read
good
from.
Christian Science author?
So Mary Baker Eddy is
Oh,
really
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Lillian DeWatters is amazing.
Cool.
And Emma Curtis Hopkins, all three women.
Cool.
Oh my gosh, just absolute spiritual
Cool.
gangsters.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
Pithy is my journey.
Pithy?
Pithy is my path.
Nice.
I want to be 60 and so pithy. I just want to be like
So
blowing
pithy.
people's heads off.
Nice.
Like I want them to leave pissed because I'm just like, nope. Like
don't make it an
Caroline
outcome.
Miss. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm not making an outcome. Like Caroline Miss. Okay, sorry, continue.
Yeah. I think this is a little more philosophical, I guess, but something that I was reading in a Paul Brunton book that he was he wasn't saying this, but it sparked the thought of sort of one of the functions of the ego. And I think you'll find this interesting, is that the ego is also it serves as a sort of like cushion or barrier between our soul and the kind of like intense impact of karma in the universe and like the consequences of our actions. It's the phrase ignorance is bliss, kind of where that comes from. When I look back at my former self in my 20s, like I can't even imagine living that life now. And like by all intents and reasons, most people look at my life and say, oh, you're like a good old boy. You're always doing the right thing and doing your best. Like I never had a partying phase or anything crazy like that. Never got hooked on drugs. But I just look at like all my misalignments, not yet anyway. I look at all my misalignments back then, my limiting beliefs back then, and the character mistakes, the integrity issues I had. And I'm like, man, if I just did any one of those today, like it would just drive me insane. I would not be able to live with myself. Because now, as you ascend spiritually and you're more and more accessing the heart and fourth density consciousness, you're more loving, you're more connected, you're more sensitive. And so misalignments and integrity violations hurt more, right? They're more intense. You feel them more. The more you awaken, the more it hurts to be out of alignment. So there's kind of that contrast of like waking up and then growing up, right? The more we grow up, we learn by mistake, essentially, right? That our suffering teaches us, I don't want to make that mistake anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. And we see how all of our selfishness and pride gets us into so much trouble. And so we get really strict and disciplined with our life, our mind, and that's part of spiritual growth. And it's beautiful, right? But that part of spiritual growth has taught me a beautiful perspective of ego and I love the ego. Like I have a very positive perspective of ego, but an even more positive one is like, man, I'm so grateful I had my ego back then to just shield me from my sheer ignorance. Like if I had really felt and understood how freaking out of alignment and hypocritical I was living back then, it would have driven me insane.
Yeah.
Because now even the tiniest deviation from my integrity just hurts. And I'll spend days at a time trying to recuperate from that.
Yeah.
And again, it's a very good thing because it's what keeps me in alignment.
Yeah.
But you just can't afford to slip up anymore the more you grow.
Yeah.
And so I've started to see ego from that perspective of like, oh, God puts us all in this on this planet as human beings. And a human lifetime is like so complex and so nuanced and so challenging. And Ra very much says so in the Law of One, that this is the hardest experience in the universe, basically.
Oh, wow. I forgot
Third
that.
density, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so we need like a bodyguard, a shepherd, an autopilot or something to help us through that initial part of things. Because somebody who's full of themselves, like they're acting a fool, they're hurting people, and they barely even know it, right?
Wow.
And so their karma takes longer to catch up with them. And it's more of a slow awakening versus you and I now, we're so sensitive to truth that the moment we step out of alignment, it hurts and we have to do something about it. So I've had a lot of gratitude for my former self in that way of, man, I was doing the best I could. And thank God I had a big ass ego back then, because it would have hurt a lot worse. If I had this level of consciousness back then and was still struggling with those addictions and habits, and oh my gosh.
I can't see you having any of that. I'm like,
Well, then you've got a projection,
yeah,
sweetheart.
I do. I'm like, my ego said that I was worse than you. My ego was like, I was way better than you were.
Well, that is something I deal with, is people assuming I don't struggle or have
I could see that.
normal human problems.
I could see that.
And so I try to talk
Does
about
that
them.
feel lonely?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I can imagine.
It's like, guys, I'm a human just like you. I promise. You know? Maybe I'm doing pretty well, all things considered, but I struggle with all the same stuff you do. Right now in my life, I'm going through something super difficult. I think I've had the most difficult challenges in my life in the last couple of years.
Bless.
So we're all going through it.
Yeah. Bless. I'm excited about the book. So 3 Beliefs of the Ego, A Sufferer's Guide to Freedom. And then you also have your YouTube. Anything else you need our amazing audience to know?
Yeah, it's available now for pre-order. I don't know when this episode airs, so it's August 12th is when it publishes. So it's already available,
It's already available. You guys can get it right now.
Yeah. And 4duniversity.com is where all my kind of courses, and I package all these teachings.
You have 10,000 people in 4D?
Way more than that now. I think we're like 18,000.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's amazing.
I know. I'm so blessed. And they're all just people just like hungry for growth. I'm
obsessed.
It's an absolute dream.
I love that. And is it every month? What do you do every month?
So we have live calls every Sunday. Cool. We have a student tier membership, which is like $40 a month.
Cool.
And then a graduate one, which we have like the really in-depth programs that are like 3 months long that systematically walk you through these things. So it all depends on how much support you're wanting or looking for. But we have something for everybody in 4DU.
We have something for everybody in 4DU. Ding! Whatever level you're at. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining. I love you so much. We have more episodes with Aaron that you can listen to on Almost 30. If you just search Aaron, 2 A's, R-O-N, Abke, you can find those now, and then you can make sure to get the book. Okay, I love you. Bye. Thank you so much, Aaron. Again, the book is called The 3 Beliefs. It's a sufferer's guide to freedom. And you can find Aaron Abke on YouTube as Aaron Abke. It's AARONABKE. And he's also Aaron Abke on Instagram.
Thank you for listening. If you love this episode, share it with a friend. And if you're interested in a little dose of Almost 30 every single day, we have our clip show Morning Microdose. And it's just a 5 to 15 minute clip that's inspiring, will make you think, funny, and it's a great way to start your day.
All right, guys, we'll see you later. Love you so much. Bye-bye.